Democrats in Congress weigh calls for ceasefire aimed pressure from the left. They have grown more they have grown more vocal about urging measures to mitigate civilian casualties in Gaza, but supporters of a ceasefire are few and far between. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators rallied in Washington on Saturday. Democrats in Congress, torn between the support for Israel in its war with Hamas and concern about civilian suffering in Gaza. torn.
Torn.
Democrats in Congress, torn between their support for Israel in its war with Hamas and concern about civilian suffering in Gaza, are struggling with how far to go in calling for measures to mitigate civilian casualties as the left wing of the party escalates pressure for a ceasefire.
Mitigate.
Mitigate. In recent days, several House and Senate Democrats have urged temporary humanitarian pauses to facilitate aid deliveries of food, water, and fuel to the Gaza Strip, echoing to the Biden administration. They have argued that the pauses are necessary to keep an already dire humanitarian crisis from worsening and to negotiate the release of more than 200 hostages, including Americans being held in Gaza since Hamas waged a bloody attack on civilians and soldiers in southern Israel on October 7. But few have embraced progressive Democrats' demands for a complete and lasting ceasefire, even as Palestinian protesters took to the streets over the weekend to demand a total cessation of hostilities.
Cessation.
Cessation. Demand a total cessation of hostilities. Most Democrats, including some of Congress' most influential liberal leaders, have argued that a full ceasefire would give Hamas time to regroup and launch another assault on Israel. Hostilities. But few have embraced progressive Democrats' demands for a complete and lasting ceasefire, even as pro-Palestinian protesters took to the streets over the weekend to demand a total cessation of hostilities. Most Democrats, including some of the Congress' most influential liberal leaders, have argued that a full ceasefire would give Hamas time to regroup and launch another assault on Israel. You've got to have a pause in the bombing. You've got to take care of the immediate disaster. Israel's got to change its strategy. Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont and a prominent Jewish progressive, said progressive progressive
Progressive.
Jewish progressive said in an interview on CNN State of the Union on Sunday. I don't know how you can have a ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, with an organization like Hamas, which is dedicated to turmoil and chaos and destroying the state of Israel. The comments drew a backlash from some progressive activities that highlighted the cross pressures Democrats are dealing with on the issue. Their dilemma, which mirrors the one President Biden has been facing as he confronts growing hostility on the left to his backing of Israel, could carry political consequences for the party overall. Democrats will be heavily reliant on strong support and turnout among their liberal core supporters in their push to hold the White House and the Senate and win control of the House in the 2024 elections. Richard J. Durbin of Illinois last week became the first Democratic senator to call for a ceasefire, which he said he would support under certain conditions, including Hamas first agreeing to release hostages. His decision reflected a shift underway on Capitol Hill that has coincided with changes in Mr. Biden's public messaging on Israel. Mr. Biden has been resolute about declaring that the United States stands in solidarity that the United States stands in solidarity with Israel, but in the last several days he and top administration officials have emphasized their efforts to persuade Israeli officials of the need for humanitarian pauses to allow the United Nations to deliver aid to civilians. Mr. Biden has been resolute about declaring that the United States stands in solidarity with Israel, but in the last several days, he and top administration officials have emphasized their efforts to persuade Israeli officials of the need for humanitarian pauses to allow the United Nations to deliver aid to civilians. The change in tone comes as progressive polls indicate that a majority of Democrat voters favor a ceasefire, as well as evidence that younger people and people of color are critical of the Biden administration's stance on the war. Representative Rashida Tlaib, Democrat of Michigan and the only Palestinian American in Congress, put a sharp point on the disconnect last week in a video that accused Mr. Biden of supporting a genocide in Gaza and threatened him with electoral consequences in 2024 if he failed to call for a ceasefire. Mr. President, the American people are not with you on this one, Ms. Tlaib said. International law defines genocide as a crime committed with the intent to destroy a national, ethnic, radical, or religious group in times of war or peace. Top Israeli officials have said they are targeting Hamas, not the Palestinian people. The video also featured pro-Palestinian protesters in Michigan chanting "From the river to the sea." a rallying cry referring to the territory between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea that many regard as calling for the eradication of Israel. Eradication of Israel. For the eradication of Israel.
Eradication.
The backlash from other Democrats to the slogan
Backlash.
The backlash from other Democrats to the slogan, which is Anti-Defamation League considers anti-Semitic, was severe. Representative Alyssa Slotkin, also a Michigan Democrat, insisted in a series of posts on the social media platform X that Mr. Tapp apologized. None of us, especially elected leaders, should amplify language that influences a tense situation and makes it harder for our communities to find common ground, wrote Mr. Slotkin. A centers who is Jewish. If I knew that a phrase I'd used had hurt any of my constituents,
Constituent.
had hurt any of my constituents, I would apologize and retract it, no matter its origin. Its origin. Its origin. Origin.
Origin.
Origin. Any of my constituents, I would apologize and retract it, no matter its origin. I'd ask the same from you. Mr. Biden has requested that humanitarian aid for Palestinians be part of any package to send military assistance to Israel. Representative Debbie Wasserman Scott, Democrat of Florida, also criticized Mr. Tapp's use of the slogan, as well as her calls for a ceasefire. This phrase means eradicating Israel and Jews. Period. She wrote in a post on X. Only a return of hostages, eliminating Hamas, and liberating Gaza from oppressive terror will save civilian lives and secure the peace, justice, and dignity you seek. Ms. Talib. Ms. Talbot defended the slogan as an aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence, not death, destruction, or hate. In a statement, she also accused her colleagues of focusing on pilloriing her at the expense of saving lives.
Pillorying.
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 Pillorying. Pillorying. Pillorying. Ms. Talib defended the slogan as an aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence, not death, destruction, or hate. In a statement, she also accused her colleagues of focusing on pilloriing her at the expense of saving lives. Pillorying.
Pillorying.
Pillorying. Pillorying. Pillorying. Pillorying. Pillorying. Ms. Taleb Ms. Taleb defended the slogan as an aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence, not death, destruction, or hate. In a statement, she also accused her colleagues of focusing on pilloriing her at the expense of saving lives. Of focusing on pilloriing, pilloriing. Miss Tarab defended the slogan as an aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence, not death, destruction, or hate. In a statement, she also accused her colleagues of focusing on pilloriing her at the expense of saving lives. My colleagues are much more focused on silencing me, the only Palestinian American voice in Congress, than they are on ending the horrific attacks on civilians in Gaza and the occupied West Bank right now, she said. Ms. Sanders shrugged. Ms. Sanders shrugged off the criticism of Mr. Taleb. Shrugged. Mr. Sanders shrugged off the criticism of Mr. Taleb, calling her a friend of mine and arguing that given her Palestinian roots, she has been shaken, as all of us are, about what is going on right there, right now. Asked about her use of the word genocide, he said,
Genocide.
Asked about her use of the word genocide, he said, words matter, but what matters more is you have a horrible humanitarian disaster that has to be dealt with right now. The rifts among Democrats are only deepening as proponents of a ceasefire demonstrate against bipartisan congressional efforts to fund Mr. Biden's request for 14.3 billion in military assistance to help Israel fight Hamas, arguing with increasingly angry rhetoric that the money and weapons will lead to more civilian carnage. Hamas' October 7 attack on Israel killed more than 1,400 people. The death toll in Gaza, which is controlled by Hamas, has exceeded 10,000 according to death officials there. The Republican-led House last week passed a bill that would provide military aid to Israel, but nothing for the Palestinians. It is instead on arrival in the Democrat-led Senate, where there is bipartisan where there is bipartisan support for including humanitarian aid for the Palestinians and packaging it all with assistance for Ukraine and other security needs. It is not yet clear when the Senate will act on the plan. What the fuck? Israel is a developed country and Palestinian, I don't know if it's a country. Palestinian, Palestinian attack Israel multiple times and every time it failed and its economy is so bad. But now you want to join Israel to, take advantage of the advance of Israel of the country, and you guys don't pay anything. It's ridiculous. You have no the authority to join Israel. They don't want you. The rubbish Palestinians. Fuck. You are American, not Palestinian. What the fuck? None of us, especially elected leaders, should amplify language that inflates a tense situation and makes it harder for our communities to find common ground. Amplify. Amplify language. None of us, especially elected leaders, should amplify language that inflates a tense situation and makes it harder for our communities to find common ground, wrote Miss Slocklin, a centrist who is Jewish. If I knew that a phrase I'd used had hurt any of my constituents, I would apologize and retract it, no matter its origin. I'd ask the same from you. Mr. Biden has requested that humanitarian aid for Palestinians be part of any package to send military assistance to Israel. Representative Debbie Wasserman Scouts, Democrat of Florida, also criticized Ms. Tlaib's use of the slogan, as well as her calls for a ceasefire. This phrase means eradicating Israel and Jews, period. She wrote in a post on X, only a return of hostages, eliminating Hamas, and liberating Gaza from oppressive terror will save civilian lives and secure the peace, justice, and dignity you seek. Mr. Tlaib defended the slogan as an aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence, not death, destruction, or hate.
Aspirational.
In a statement, she also accused her colleagues of focusing on polarizing her at the expense of saving lives. My colleagues are much more focused on silence me, the only Palestinian American voice in Congress, than they are on ending the horrific attacks on civilians in Gaza and the occupied West Bank right now, she said. Mr. Sanders shrugged off the criticism of Ms. Tlaib, calling her a friend of mine and arguing that given her Palestinian roots, she has been shaken, as all of us are, about what is going on right there, right now. Asked about her use of the word genocide, he said, words matter, but what matters more is you have a horrible humanitarian disaster that has to be dealt with right now. The rifts among Democrats are only deepening as proponents of a ceasefire demonstrate against bipartisan congressional efforts to fund Mr. Biden's request for $14.3 billion in military assistance to help Israel fight Hamas, arguing with increasingly angry rhetoric that money and weapons will lead to more civilian carnage. Hamas' October 7 attack on Israel killed more than 1,400 people. The death toll in Gaza, which is controlled by Hamas, has exceeded 10,000, according to the health official there. The Republican-led House last week passed a bill that would provide military aid to Israel, but nothing for the Palestinians. It is instead on arrival in the Democratic-led Senate, where there is bipartisan support for including humanitarian aid for the Palestinians and packaging it all with assistance for Ukraine and other security needs. It is not yet clear when the Senate will act on the plan.